Welcome to this look at peat on the Tassi map. Tassi in Estonia. Estonia, one of the places where a lot of peat is harvested. I'm not going to say grown because we'll get into what peat is and how it's formed as we go through the episode, I suppose we would call it. But basically it's a look at harvesting peat. Now I am at the store on the Tassi map. I have taken up the other pieces of equipment, and yeah, in the bio of the mod it does say that it's best advised to put them onto a low loader, and it's probably is, and some nice low loaders made. I did take all these vehicles up when I was doing a practice on low loaders, but I don't really think it's necessary, especially on this map, because it's not really that far away and they do seem to track along quite nicely. Now I have, for the purposes of this video, used much more powerful equipment, and I'll chat about that as we go through than is recommended or required. And once we get this up to the field, I will just go through where we find all the pieces of equipment. So as I say, I have done a little bit of a test on the field just to see how it works, and I thought, well, let's go through a little bit about what peat is. I don't think we've ever seen peat on Farming Simulator before, certainly not to my knowledge. Here are the other pieces of equipment. So let's just go through the establishment of peat bogs and what peat bogs are quickly. Right, so peat bogs are formed mainly in wetlands, so bogs, swamps, that type of stuff, where the decomposition of organic matter, so plants basically, plants, mosses, sedges, woody plants, all that type of stuff slows down, and basically it doesn't fully decompose. It layers itself up and basically forms these peat boglands, I suppose you could call them. Of course they can be very, very soft and, as the word says, boggy. Things get, but people have found that because they are one of nature's great storers of carbon, and some people say even better storage of carbon than trees. A lot of northern countries where there are not a lot of trees, like Scotland, or there still are a lot of trees, but I mean Scotland and Wales and in the UK and Finland, and capture a lot of carbon in these peatlands. Because it's a natural decomposition, it takes ages to form peatlands as such, and it can take up to 1,000 years for a meter of peat to form. And that's why there's been a big outcry in recent years about the harvesting of peat. Of course, peat was traditionally used to heat homes, render walls basically, and made floors of, because it dries out quite nicely. But traditionally it's been used for fuel. Very, very good source of fuel, of course, because it has a lot of carbon in it. Traditionally it would be dug out in sort of shovelfuls and then dried out and then burnt. Right, so that's kind of the history lesson of peat done. In order to farm peat, because in our first world countries now, we've realized that this also becomes very, very good fertilizer and very good for potting plants. So it became commercially viable. And so people have worked out that if you dig these drainage ditches, you can start draining and drying out the peatlands before you harvest them. Right, in the UK, we will only be able to harvest peat up until the year 2030, and then it'll be banned. And this is because it takes so long to recover. You can't just replant it. There are ways that people have started recovering peatlands by blocking up the drainage ditches and adding more moisture and more plants. But just the nature of the way it produces takes a long, long time. In any case, yeah, so let's have a look and see what sort of equipment. So we do need specialized equipment. And let's have a look and see what we've got. So let's go into our shop, and we'll go down to miscellaneous, and we'll have a look at, I think all the machinery is in miscellaneous. So the first thing we need is a miller. Right, and they say only 150 horsepower required to pull that. Most probably, my feeling is that on the map it can be pulled by 150 horsepower. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. I've just used bigger equipment, and this probably is the first two steps require the least amount of power. What I would suggest, and if you want a bit of realism, is when you get to the tractors, is to put wide tires or tracks on those, because they are essentially bogs, even though they have been dried out and drained to a certain extent. In any case, so that is 30,000. Nothing much more that you need. It's a pretty basic piece of equipment, and what this does is it's almost like a rake as such. So basically it just disturbs and loosens up the top few centimeters of the peatlands. Right, then the next piece of equipment, so if we go back, is the peat ridger. So this basically is a windrower. This fits on the front of a tractor. They say it only needs 100 horsepower. My feeling is that it probably needs a bit more than that. I've used bigger equipment, but if they say 100 horsepower will work, it will work. You push this on the front of it, and basically it works like a windrower and collects the peat up into rows. Now I've seen videos where this actually is dragged behind the tractors and has a contraption in the middle that connects up to the tractor, because obviously you can't really get your tractor in there. Right, and then the third piece of equipment. Now also I've seen that quite often people would use almost a I suppose you would call it something very similar to a tedder between the first two steps to actually turn the peat over so that it dries a little bit quicker. But in this case we don't have that piece of equipment. Right, and we go back, and then we've got the harvester, the peat harvester, that says needs 130 horsepower. But I would think that this traditionally would need, and the videos I've seen of peat harvesting, they use fairly big tractors to pull this along, because of course it fills up and it puts more weight on it. A lot of these vehicles are tracked. I can see that they have got double tires on here. I put wide tires on on everything that we've used. Right, so those are the equipment, piece of equipment, and just pulled along normal trailers. As I said, and we'll go and have a look at it quickly, they do recommend that you put it onto a low bed loader. And as I said, I did use the low bed trailer. Where is it now? But I don't think it's really necessary. They seem to pull along the road quite easily. In fact, it's actually easier to take them along the road because it becomes a very wide vehicle. This one here, the Load King, very wide, brilliant looking trailer, fantastic. Right, so let's get started. Okay, we'll just get our so we can see where so basically we just lower that. First of all, you can only harvest between and we'll show you that you can only harvest between the drainage ditches. So if we lower that here, so we lower the miller and we turn it on, you'll see that nothing happens in the first part until we get close to the ditches, and then it'll start taking off and just disturbing the top layer of the peat. And that's nice and easy. We'll go to the bottom and we'll come back up here, and then we'll get onto the next piece of equipment. So I'll just speed that up. Right, so we just about finished the second pass here. You will notice that I have wide tires on the tractor. In fact, I've seen videos where people use specifically double tires just to spread the load. So I would say tracked vehicles would also be quite good on that. Right, so that's step one, and let's just park this to one side, and then we'll go through step two, which basically is the windrowing of the peat. And got the tractor class on here. They do recommend that you counterbalance these implements, and this one does particularly feel like it should be, because it's quite wide, especially when you're pushing it out the front. As I say, I have seen this with a connection in the middle, and kind of makes sense because there's not a huge amount of clearance underneath these tractors, but still. So we'll lower that, turn it. Oh, we're on the wrong thing, aren't we? And we'll lower that. We'll turn it on, and as you can see there, it acts pretty much as a windrower. So let's get going. Go. Let's take it back a bit so you can see what's happening. So it forms these ridges basically. Same as a windrower would, it makes it easier to collect the dry peat. And we'll put that onto a little time lapse just to get to the bottom and back again, just to give you a feel for how it works. See it once it's done. Right, and as we're just finishing off this second Second lap, the second row. The biggest producers of peat are countries like Finland and Germany, Sweden, Canada, Latvia, Belarus. I would imagine Estonia, because this is an Estonian map as well, would be quite big at that. Ireland also has quite a big operation for well, I know of a big operation. They're harvesting clover peat, and quite a few interesting videos come out of them. That's kind of where I've got a lot of my information from, actually. University of YouTube. In any case, let's get into the case now, and we'll get the harvester going. Well, yeah, I suppose it is the harvester. Pickup. Forage harvester is what this would be akin to in the way it works. Now, I've also seen different versions of this. A lot of the videos I've seen, the pickup is actually in the front of this machine, of the hopper type thing. But yeah, and we'll just lower that to turn it on, and this works just like a forage harvester, basically. Vacuums everything up. And we get a reasonable yield. So the whole operation is pretty much the same as a grass harvest operation. There are no balers for any of these at this point in time. I'm sure that will come along. I haven't seen any, haven't really looked for them on the internet when I was doing my research for this little video. I was very interested when I saw this, simply because I thought to myself, well, this is normally used for burning, for producing heat. And then, of course, I thought, oh, of course, there's peat compost and all that type of stuff. And I've never really thought about it to the extent of where it comes from. And, well, I've just never really thought about it. I kind of knew that peat comes from bogs and that type of stuff, but I never really thought about it. And yeah, so once again, a farm simulator has created and piqued an interest, and has allowed me to learn something. And if nothing else, that makes this a brilliant innovation. If people just get to know a little bit more about peat, it's obviously a very controversial product, and yeah, and it's basically the same really as forests, deforestation, so debogging, I suppose you could, calling of, and in many cases this would be worse if this was done to try and reclaim farmland, simply because of how long it takes to reform. It takes a long time to grow a tree, but it doesn't take 1,000 years to grow a tree to where it's usable, let's put it this way. Whereas this take 1,000 years just to get a meter of growth, basically. 1,000 years. Can you believe it? In any case, so we've got 21,000 litres there, which is just under half of this hopper. Let's go and see where we can sell this. Let's have a look. See, right, it's in the... Right, so it's showing there August 24,000 is the best month to sell. But the storage bay is offering us £40,000 a litre. Amazing, amazing. Even at the lowest level, 10,000 a litre. Wow. But let's find out where that is. I think it's probably down where the store is. Tag. And we'll go onto the map. Yep, it's down there where the store is. So we'll drive that back down there and we'll go and make a delivery. Not very far away. So you could, of course, just offload this on the land and then have some sort of loading operation. I think that's possibly how a lot of harvesters will do it, or farmers, peat farmers would do it. But I think this is just as easy in this case because it's just a little way to go. Bearing in mind we've got 20,000 litres here, that so it would be way over 40,000 litres once this harvester is full. So let's just see what we get for 21,381 litres. It's going to be a whack at 40,000 litres, £40,000 a litre. Just can't see those prices being realistic. But in any event, right, so this is where we harvest it or deliver it. Deliver peat, and that just, so you have the ability to unload as well. Fantastic. There we go. 856,000. Oh, less than half a, well, for 21,000 litres of peat. Man, you're going to be you're going to get rich really, really quickly doing this. Okay, so that's peat harvesting and a little bit of history about peat. Very interesting. I do enjoy the fact that it has been done. So thank you so much for watching this, and I do hope you found it informative. If you have, please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one. Cheerio.